All right, let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers. Training camp, of course, is in full swing. A lot of reports across Latrobe about some guys doing a lot of really good things. Of course, a lot of big names arriving in Pittsburgh. First time to see them in a lot of team sessions. There's one guy in particular, however, that got some really good press earlier in the offseason, but slid under the radar as other big names have arrived into the fold. But I tell you what, this young prospect, this new Pittsburgh Steeler, is still doing good things and continues to get better and better. It's a great sign for this Steelers squad. We'll get to all that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, this offseason and certainly over the past few months have just dominated in terms of adding big names across the board. Of course, we look at Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Rodgers, a lot of great draft picks. Derek Harmon, the first rounder. Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa, getting a lot of press. And who can forget fan favorite quarterback Will Howard? Potentially, probably the future of this franchise. But there's one rookie in particular who got a lot of good press early in the offseason, but it's been almost forgotten. He's doing great things in training camp, however, and we'll get into that report. And we're talking about Pittsburgh Steelers fourth round selection, Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. Let's pull up the two reports we have here, just some quick buzz from Saturday's practice. The first one is from Black and Gold Nation. In the absence of key defenders, rookie linebacker Jack Sawyer seized the opportunity to make his mark, contributing several standout plays during team sessions. And then another reporter, Alex Kazera, noted that Jack Sawyer continues to rush like a vet. He's consistently winning. Okay, so we're seeing across the board multiple different sources here saying Sawyer looks good. He's winning a lot in these team sessions, and I think that's a good sign. We've seen him all throughout camp. Again, not a whole lot of practices at this point, doing good things, impressing the coaching staff, making a name for himself. Obviously, the Steelers have a few guys out, not practicing as much right now. Sawyer's taking advantage of those opportunities, and I think Sawyer, despite how good the Steelers defense is, can step in and immediately get them to an even better place this season. Obviously, he's got a great long-term potential, but he could be a day one big force as well. Let's get into the data to talk about why I think that will occur. So let's pull up our first chart here. We're talking about Sawyer versus top prospects in terms of edge rushers. So we looked at his numbers, sacks and rush defense grade, sacks in blue, rush defense grade in red there. We compared him against Abdul Carter, Shamar Stewart, Ashton Gelati to the Kansas City Chiefs, if you're not familiar with him, and Jack Sawyer, of course, there on the right. And what we're looking for here is trying to make sure, see what normally happens with edge defenders, right? Is you're trading great pass rush talent, you get a lot of sacks, but you have a dip in rush defense grade, right? You're a pass rusher only, you can't stop the run, or you're a good run defender and you're not a productive pass rusher. And that's what we see on these charts. So, for example, you look at Shamar Stewart with the Cincinnati Bengals, second from the left. He's really good against the rush. Rush defense grade is better than anybody's, but his sack production is significantly lower. Even Ashton Gelati, very similar dynamic. Even Abdul Carter had a pretty big spread, the top 10 selection, one of the best players in the draft. Between his sacks, in terms of his raw production there, is rush defense grade. If you look at Jack Sawyer on the right there, his spread is very narrow, right? He's good in all of those categories, good at accumulating sacks, very good rush defense grade, but he's very good in both of them together. He doesn't have a wide disparity. He doesn't have an inherent weakness, and that's really important. Like I said a second ago, there's a lot of edge defenders great at rushing the passer, can't stop the run. A lot of edge defenders really good at stopping the run, can't get sacks. So when you look at this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and here's where it gets very interesting. Let's go ahead and pull up our next chart here to highlight what I'm talking about. This is on the x-axis here. This is their defensive run EPA. So think of it as just how good your defense is on a play-by-play basis. In the x-axis and the y-axis is defensive sacks, the sacks they get. And you can see the red arrow kind of points you right to where the Pittsburgh Steelers are, right in the middle of the pack, right, in terms of where they sit. A little bit better in run EPA, a little bit above average, I should say, a little bit below average in terms of sacks. And you can see what the Steelers are looking at this. If they were trying to make their team in a better position for 2025, they'd say, okay, we need to improve our sacks. We need to get more sacks. But if they go out and just get a sack specialist, they'll see their run defense grade weaken. So then the next season, they'll sit there and say, okay, we got to get an edge defender that can play against the run. You go out and get an edge defender that's really good against the run, but he can't get sacks. Your run defense goes up, but your sacks go down, right? This is normally what happens with teams in the NFL. They constantly pendulum swing from one end to the other. And it's not just with defense. You'll see it all the time, right? We need a good pass catching running back. So they go out and get a good pass catching running back. He can't run short yardage. So then they go out the next offseason, they get a short yardage running back who can't catch a pass. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. Sawyer's a rare prospect who, like we saw in the previous chart, can do both. And I think that's exactly why the Steelers pulled off a really high value deal here in terms of acquiring Jack Sawyer, drafting him. I think he's a guy who can come in and get them in a better position, both against the run, both in getting sacks without weakening either. Because if you look at the Steelers team, and we mentioned this about a week and a half ago, this is a Steelers team that even though the appearance is not their all-in, they're actually, based on their salary cap availability and the void year dollars they've used or the lack thereof, structured themselves for the long term. They're trying to set up a very balanced, deep team so that way in the post-Aaron Rodgers era, they can find a quarterback, whether it's Will Howard or someone else, that can lead this franchise long term. Sawyer's a guy without a weakness. As a rookie, will be relatively cheap for many years. He can come in and be a key part of this defense, helping out in run defense with no weakness against the pass, helping out as a pass rusher with no weakness against the run, building a key core piece of this unit as they look to find and develop their franchise quarterback, building a great structure around them. This is one of those under the radar moves. It's not getting the headlines. Guys like Johnson are, guys like Howard are, of course Rodgers is, Ramsey is, things like that. But I tell you what, folks, if you look back, say 3, 4, 5 years from now, I think that Jack Sawyer's selection will ring extremely large as one of the better Pittsburgh Steelers moves in recent memory. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Steelers fans, in the comment section below, we're talking fourth round selections when it comes to Jack Sawyer. So let me ask you this. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest fourth round pick in Pittsburgh Steelers history? Really going to test your memory here or your ability to use Google. So again, give us your thoughts on this. The greatest fourth round pick in Pittsburgh Steelers history. Put them in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure you sign up for our weekly newsletter courtesy of the Substack platform. There's a link in the description box below. 100% free. It's just extra content. We get you articles, some extra thoughts, some extra stats, and we even highlight the best comments of the week. So if you have a great comment, you may find yourself in there. So again, make sure you sign up. 100% free. Link in the description box below. But Mize, let's get it over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest out of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Nick, I think this guy, it hits the nail on the head when we're talking about Sawyer. As far as what you said, is someone who's consistent in both departments. I think it's really rare to find someone like this, and you can reel it all the way back to when he started taking significant steps at Ohio State. Let's go all the way back to 2022. This guy, and we're talking about, the infancy of his career as a college football player here. We look 2022, let's look his run defense grade versus pass rush grade. 73 run defense grade, 70.5 pass rush grade. Very balanced. A guy who's good at both, even very early on in his career. And you'd think maybe early on this is a guy who maybe finds his bones at one position and then, kind of rolls it, gets better. Maybe he's a better run defender, becomes a better pass rusher as it goes on. No, very balanced right from the beginning. You go to the next year in 2023, you look again, 86.6 run defense grade, 86.0 pass rush grade, almost the definition of consistency. Identical scores there. A guy, again, very well versed in both aspects. We're talking about at Ohio State here, a team playing the best competition in the country, a team who last year won the national championship. So this is a guy who knows exactly how to do it. And again, 2024, obviously we went over his stats, but 82.6 run defense grade, 89.4 pass rush grade. The guy's an absolute phenom, gets better. Very consistent, and I don't think either one of his scores ever dwindle. He's always consistently just as good as a run defender as he is as a pass rusher, and I think that's a win here for the Steelers. Like you said, a lot of teams pendulum swing. They get a lot of good run defenders on their team. They need to stop the run. They do stop the run, but they're not as great as pass rush anymore. So then they go back and they get a lot of pass rushers on their team. They try to get after the quarterback. They get their sack numbers up. But then run defense suffers, so on and so forth. So getting a guy here like Sawyer, I think, is a really big get for the Pittsburgh Steelers for the fact that this guy is super balanced. He seems very consistent. As we look at some of the other players that Pittsburgh has, they're very, very good, but also they are kind of unbalanced. You look at a guy like Nick Herbig, a guy up-and-comer, 91.5 pass rush grade last year, but a 48.2 run defense grade. Very, very talented pass rusher. Really, really strong, but not so great in the run defense department. You look at a guy like Highsmith. Highsmith, he's pretty good at both, but if you look, there is a gap. 89.2 pass rush grade, 78.3 run defense grade. A little bit of a difference there as well. So, nonetheless, these guys all very, very good. TJ Watt, obviously, he's great at everything, so his grades are virtually identical, but the Steelers, they got another guy coming into the fold who's good at everything. And I think this is going to elevate the defense, allow them to have a guy that's on the field at all times. They can either play the run or he can rush the passer. be just as good at both of them. I think this is a big win for the Steelers. And like you said, I think he's underrated. He doesn't get enough play at camp. I want everyone to watch him because I think this is going to be one of the guys to watch this season. When he gets on the field, I think he's going to be a big-time win for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And the beautiful thing about Sawyer is that he doesn't have to come in day one and play 50, 60 snaps a game, obviously. So if there are any issues, if there's anything schematically or any sort of football, 400 level football that he's trying to learn as part of the Steelers defense, he doesn't have to be thrown into the fire right away. And I think that's really important to understand, especially when you look at the investment the Steelers have in him. And when I say investment, I mean it's a steal. You look at his salary cap hits. I'm going to read you. This is starting this season for the next 4 years. 1.1 million, 1.2 million, 1.4 million, 1.5 million, right? That's just for a guy who should be much better than those numbers. You talk about just incredible value. You talk about what he did at Ohio State. Great culture guy, great leader, clutch player, everything you want in a defender the Steelers got. Now, will he become the next Watt or anything like that? Obviously, that's a high bar to meet, but just a good, solid, all-around football player, I think, is a borderline, I hate to say guarantee, but it feels pretty sure based on what we're seeing so far and based on his collegiate production. Again, you highlighted his consistency. 3 straight years he improved but maintained, again, very consistent both against the run, both against the pass. I think he's a guy that comes in, he contributes in certain situations in a backup role very early on, and then in 2026 2027 timeframe when the Pittsburgh Steelers start trying to evaluate and decide what they're going to do at the quarterback position long term, they know they've got a very cheap, we're talking $1.3 million cap hit on a quality edge rusher that will open up them some extra dollars to maybe surround a young quarterback with additional talent on that side of the football. So again, things don't happen in a vacuum in the NFL, right? Dollars spent at one position can't be spent at another. The Pittsburgh Steelers look at Jack Sawyer as a guy who is going to continue to grow and develop, as he's already a good solid player even today, but he'll continue to get better, become a bigger part of the Steelers defense at an incredible discount. Again, you talk about a hidden gem, you talk about a value, you talk about steal, all those buzzwords that are thrown around. I think in the long term, all of them will come to fit Jack Sawyer. Great job by the Pittsburgh Steelers and great job by Sawyer doing very good with the opportunities at this point.